of our generation, which is the issue of climate change. I'm Adrienne Esposito, Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. For those of you who may not know, CCE is a statewide environmental and public health protection organization. We have members all throughout New York and Connecticut, and we work on a wide variety of environmental protection issues. One of the key things that we've been working on now for years is working to help New York make the transition from being reliant on fossil fuels and transitioning to renewable energy, wind, solar, battery backup, to break our addiction to fossil fuels and also to create a new green energy future. So we thank you for joining. Let me let my other panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to give the rules of the road for this evening. But I'm going to turn it over to our co-host this evening, Melissa.
Thank you, Adrienne. My name is Melissa Griffiths-Perrott. I'm the founder and executive director of Students for Climate Action. Very proud of the high school and college students that we've been working with the last 5 years. Our goal is to work with elected officials on transitioning to 100% renewable electricity. And we also educate and do community outreach about that issue and climate change. I'm very proud to have one of our students today joining us who will also be a panelist. We have 9 schools on Long Island, and we also have chapters nationally. And we continue to grow. So we have over 100 students that are fighting for climate action and the transition to renewable energy. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Erin.
Hi, my name is Erin Peskin. I am a 12th grader at Longwood High School and a member of Students for Climate Action. And I am here to give the youth perspective on climate and yeah.
Thank you. And our final panelist tonight is Daniel.
Hi, I'm Dan Axtatter. I am a chapter leader of Citizens Climate Lobby, the Queens Nassau chapter, and we're a volunteer-based, nonpartisan advocacy group for climate action.
Well, let me start out by saying our first guest is going to be arriving at 7:45, and our first guest will be Jackie Gordon, and she's running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. But before we do that, I want you to know all those running for Congress on Long Island were invited multiple times. Not all responded, but all were invited. But we are very happy to have Jackie Gordon, Congressman Andrew Garbarino, Bridget Fleming, Laura Gillen, and Robert Zimmerman. So each of them will be provided 15 minutes. We have some prepared questions that we will be asking each person. And then if we have time in that 15-minute window, we'll take some of the questions that you put into the Q&A. I cannot guarantee that we're going to get to your questions. I don't know how long each congressional candidate will talk. Some might talk a lot, some might not. I don't know. But we will ask your questions if we have time, and I hope that we will. And that is, one of the purposes. The purpose of today, of this evening, is this is not a partisan issue that we feel. We feel this issue is really a human issue. And this is not about playing politics. This forum is really about informing you, the public, about the positions of those who are going to run our nation and are going to be enabling legislation and enacting legislation on climate change. And we really want to hear from them about what their positions are, what they plan to do, and how they feel about this issue. The reason we feel this is so important for here on Long Island, and you guys know this, is that we're on the front lines of climate change impacts. I was watching the news tonight, and it's almost the 10-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. And we all remember Superstorm Sandy. It was devastating. People not only had their homes flooded, but almost everything they had were lost. Homes, cars, wedding albums, clothes, you name it. And everything was put out to the curb to be taken away as garbage. So we need to understand that if we don't fight against climate change, who do we expect will do it? It has to be us. And one of the things I really want to say about Melissa's organization is that they invigorate and empower the youth. And Melissa, can you just mention briefly about the meetings that the youth have with elected officials? It's not just a club. I don't want people to think this is a climate action club. It's actually way more than that and provides more meaning.
Thank you, Adrian. As soon as I passed it on to Aaron, I said, oh, there's so many more things I could say about it. No, students do initially call it a club, and I'm like, it's not a club, it's a committee. We are an organization, and these students meet in person with town officials, county, state, and federal elected officials to talk to them, engage with them professionally, respectfully, to have this discussion about climate change and actions to curb this. And we really focus on climate change legislation on all levels of government. These students speak at town board meetings. These students speak in front of the Suffolk County Legislature. They have one-on-one meetings with the Suffolk County legislators, New York State representatives, and like I said, the federal representatives. So they also write op-eds. They're doing letters to editors. They're doing as much as they can to, and whatever niche they feel most comfortable doing to make this change, including educating the community and businesses in their area. And we, like I said, we keep growing. We also have a chapter in New York City who's doing some great work with that, working on climate action campaigns and other priorities that we work with.
Can you just spend a minute and just say what your organization does and the extensive work that you do as the Citizens Climate Lobby?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We do a lot of similar things to what Melissa just mentioned, but one of the things that Citizens Climate Lobby is most known for is at least twice a year we go down to DC and we lobby every member of Congress, Senate and House. So I'm sure the winners of the November election will be visiting them many times. But so one of what we're primarily focused on carbon pricing and getting that involved, although that's not the only policy that we also support. But yeah, definitely agree that this is, shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican issue, and that, we'll need both parties to work together in order to really solve the climate crisis.
I think that's one of our questions tonight as well. And last, I just want to say, for instance, today, a couple of us, Melissa and I, were actually with the governor, and we were there for the announcement that New York State will be providing $9 million in grants for workforce training in the offshore wind realm. And that is really great news. And there'll be a training facility that's being built right now. It should be open by October of next year, 2023. And the training facility will do such things as train the next generation in manufacturing, high-tech jobs, business elements of offshore wind and renewable energy. So not only will we have offshore wind farms and expanded solar and the other technologies that are coming in, but we will have a trained workforce. There will be apprenticeship programs. There will be programs for high school students who don't want to go to college and really view themselves more as going into the work world right away. There will be programs for transitioning jobs. Those people that have worked on power plants, but now need to transition to be able to work on offshore wind. And that's what we call a just transition. So these are the kind of programs I think that are really exciting, because these are the kind of programs that will allow offshore wind and renewable energy to really be a lasting permanent change. So we can transition off of renewable energy and we can grow the green economy at the same time, lifting up communities, lifting up our region, and establishing really not only achieving our climate change goals, but really establishing a pathway forward that other states and regions can emulate. I got to give it to New York. This is the way to do it. This is the way to do the transition. create the jobs, create the training, create the pathway, not only just approve offshore wind, but a lasting pathway to achieve success for this transition.
And Adrienne, I just want to add to that and how great it is to have youth part of that conversation. You know, these students, they're acting on their future. They're going to be our future decision makers. They're the ones who we're leaving a legacy for them. And to have these students actively involved in changing policy and having this passion and standing up for themselves. Some of these students cannot vote yet, but they sure will, and they sure have adults around them that do. So it's really exciting to see the advocacy that the youth is really taking on when it comes to climate change.
Okay, so waiting for our first presenter, or I shouldn't say presenter, I should say panelist, which is Jackie Gordon. And we're just, what perfect timing is that? We're like a well-oiled machine here. Hello there, Jackie Gordon. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you. Hi.
Hi. So we just want to, before we get started, we'll just quickly introduce the panelists. You know me, I'm Adrienne Esposito with Citizens Campaign for the Environment. My co-host today is Melissa.
Hi, Jackie. I'm Melissa Perrott. I'm the Executive Director of Students for Climate Action.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. And Erin?
Hi, my name is Erin Peskin. I am a high school student here on Long Island, and I'm a member of Students for Climate Action.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm Dan Axtatter. I'm here representing Citizens Climate Lobby. And, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much. We know you're in a very busy time of year right now, Jackie, so we appreciate it much. We're just to give you the lowdown, you get a couple of minutes to make whatever statements you would like. Each of us will then ask you a question, and then time permitting, we might take 1 or 2 questions from the Q&A in the chat. We are going to keep on our 15-minute intervals because, as you know, after your 15 minutes, then another candidate comes on and so on and so on. So thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you for your opening statement.
Thank you, Adrienne, and thank you all for having me. I am Jackie Gordon. I'm running for Congress in the New York 2nd Congressional District. I am a combat veteran. I was in the reserves for 29 years. I had 4 deployments as a military police officer, and I retired honorably at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. I also served as an educator for 32 years, 22 of them right here in the district, and I served as a Babylon Town Councilwoman for 13 years. Those 3 careers I did simultaneously while raising 2 children here on Long Island as a single mom. I am very interested in our environment and in climate. I believe that we have an obligation to leave the earth much better than we found it. And of course, I also believe that when you know better, you have to do better. And we now know that we have an obligation to move towards renewable energy to make sure that we can have a much brighter future for our young people like Erin and her classmates. And so I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have. And of course, Adrienne and we go back a couple of years, and I, love the work that she does and her expertise, which I'm going to lean on when I'm in Washington. We'll probably become good friends. And what's important too is making sure that we have someone who will prioritize climate change, who believes that believes in climate change, that we have an issue, that we need to address it in Washington to make sure that we have proper advocacy.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with the first question, not shocking, I think. But there are currently 5 offshore wind farms that are going through the regulatory process here off of the coast of Long Island and New York City. And we are expecting early next year the announcement of a few more wind farms that will begin the regulatory process. What will you do if you win to help facilitate the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy? Will you support these wind farms? And how would you do that?
Well, I think it's important. I like the idea of the wind farms. I think it is a movement in the right direction. I will support it. I did say that I was in education for 32 years, but I didn't tell you what I did. For the 22 years that I was in here on Long Island, I was a guidance counselor at Wilson Tech. It's a vocational high school. So I understand how important skills trades are. We need to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And so that also means transitioning jobs. And I believe in starting young, starting in high school. So we will work with our BOCES here in Western and Eastern Suffolk. We can create courses to make sure that they are prepared to move from the apprentice level coming out of high school, can go into apprenticeship programs in the union, and then move on perhaps to a community college level or go on to college. Trade school does not mean you have to choose between going straight to work or to college. You can do both, either or. And that's why you have guidance counselors to help you figure all of that out. And so I'm really excited because I think it goes with the workforce development and helping to keep our young people right here on Long Island.
Thank you. Melissa?
Well, thank you. So as you know, climate change is not a political issue, it is a human issue. So if elected, how will you engage and collaborate with colleagues from across the aisle on climate policy?
Not different from any other policy. So, I spent 29 years in the military, and over that time, I do not remember or recall at any time that I looked to my left or my right and asking my comrades if they were Republican or Democrat, what state they came from, if they like Coke or Pepsi. It was accomplishing the mission. That was the focus. And that's my MO. I did that in education. I did that on the Babylon Town Board, working collaboratively with several levels of government, civic organizations, non-governmental organizations, whoever we needed to get the job done. The bottom line is our citizens, the people in the district, making sure we get what they need. And so it's not about me and what I like and who I like. That doesn't matter. It's working together. And it's how I have been trained formally and who I am personally. That's my modus operandi.
Thank you. Erin?
Erin?
Hi, so I am part of the youth who plans to be working in the environmental field in the future, and we want to use clean energy over fossil fuels as much as possible. But for jobs in this industry, we need to be properly trained. So my question is, what will you do to make sure that there is a well-trained workforce here on Long Island to meet upcoming needs and opportunities in wind and solar and other renewable energies?
So right up my alley. And as I said before, I will push for that. I will push for making sure that courses and schools like the one I worked with are well funded. I will push that community colleges are well funded. I'd actually like to see community colleges being free to make sure that we can have those jobs stay here on Long Island. Apprenticeship programs for the unions to make sure that we can make sure the good union jobs stay here on Long Island and are diverse, and hire people from here on Long Island so that they stay here. And so education is really important to me. Young people are really important to me. I think we need to, again, prioritize our youth. They're our future. That's who we're doing all of this for you, Erin, you and your peers. And so that will always be my North Star, and to help keep me focused.
Thank you.
Daniel. Gotta unmute yourself, Daniel.
Yep. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. And, the last question we have for you today is, if you are, what do you see as the most important climate or energy issue for the second district? And what actions to address climate change will be a top priority for you if you're elected to Congress?
There are so many issues with climate change, and they're all important, I believe. But I think with Superstorm Sandy right in our rearview mirror, and so many constituents right now still actually impacted by Superstorm Sandy. I think our coastline resiliency is really important. And so bringing infrastructure money to shore up our coastline, I think is really important, is one of the important things that I would work on immediately, because I believe that citizens here are worried about the next superstorm that's coming.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Okay, we do have a question in the chat. It's an interesting one. I'm going to read it. You ready? Given that the Pentagon's considered among the major sources of polluters on the globe, what do you think can be done to make the Department of Defense reduce its impact on the environment?
The Pentagon, the building?
No, I think he means the Department of Defense. Yes, I'm sure he does.
Is it the, okay, read it again, I'm sorry.
I will, yes. I will interpret it. Given that the Department of Defense, which means, all of the Navy, for instance, we have two different plumes on Long Island from the Navy, is considered among the major sources of pollution on the globe. What can be done to make them reduce their impact on the environment?
Well, I think they have to be held accountable, right? So they can't be allowed any longer and retroactively to just cut and run. So we know, for example, that the Navy was here in Bethpage. We know who the offenders are. And so we have to hold them accountable and make sure that there's enforcement for them to clean up and take their garbage with them, even if it's 20, 30 or 40 years ago, because we know who they were and we know that they're responsible. And moving forward, there needs to be hardline legislation to ensure that, organizations cannot cut and run before their waste is cleaned up. So it's not leave and then I'll come back and clean it up. It has to be cleaned up prior to leaving. It shouldn't be waste at all.
There's another question I think we have time for this question too. Although this is a tricky question, because I don't think, Jackie, that even environmentalists agree on the answer to this question, but we will ask it since a member of the audience asked it. Where do you stand on carbon capture technology? Would you support a bill to allocate federal funds towards investment, research, and development of carbon capture technologies?
Well, I know in the town, we did a bit of carbon capture when it came to ash, and it helped us to expand our capability as far as holding waste. And we used the ash to build walls to expand, how much room we had. But I'm not an expert. So if the environmentalists who are experts don't have an answer, I clearly am not going to pretend to have an answer. But I know
think
that
that's very fair.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask one last one, but thank you. And I will say carbon capture is something that environmental groups do grapple with. I myself have some, having a degree in geology, I have some real concerns about some of the carbon capture technologies that some industry have offered as a solution. All right, we're going to ask this last question and then give you some time to make a closing statement. This one is by Paris. Paris is asking, would you support and be a champion of policies that reduce car dependency and cost of living, such as incentives for microtransit and mixed use development?
Absolutely. As I said, when you know better, you have to do better. And so I think that using public transportation, less vehicles on the road, bicycles, walking, will be better, not for us, not only for us physically, but for the environment. So I would definitely support that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we do have 2 minutes left and the floor is now all yours. Any concluding statement you'd like or anything you'd like to add? That would be wonderful.
Well, I just want to thank you for all the work you do. This is a very important topic because if we don't have a clean, healthy place to dwell, there's nowhere else to go. This is the utmost important. And so we have to make sure that on November 8th, when we choose who our representatives will be, and that's not only job title, but job description, that we choose someone who will prioritize climate change, who understands that it's really happening. I have spent my entire adult life serving my community that I love, my adopted country that I fought for, and I will continue to fight for issues that are important, not only to me, but to the people that I swear to serve and to fight for. And so thank you so much for giving me this time and this space to speak to you and to engage in this conversation. And I hope that I will earn your support and continue to fight for you.
And before you go, would you just, for the people on, just tell them, because some of the districts have changed and some have changed very dramatically. What is the span now of the 2nd Congressional Districts so people are clear on that?
So it's the New York 2nd District. It's Massapequa south of Sunrise in Nassau County. It is the entire towns of Babylon and Islip, and it's South Brookhaven, and it also includes Fire Island, South Brookhaven all the way to Eastport. And it also includes Fire Island. That's the new 2nd District.
Okay,
And you can
great.
find out more information at JackieGordon4FORCongress.com.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you again. We appreciate your time. We know this is excessively busy right now, the last few weeks in October. So we wish you luck. And thank you so much again for joining us and for discussing the issue of climate change, particularly as it pertains to Long Island.
Thanks, Adrienne. Thank you so much. Thanks
Bye.
all of you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. The next candidate is Congressman Garbarino. I don't know if he's in the queue yet. I'm texting my text people. They're saying he's not here yet. So I want to say, I think we do have time at the end for some questions. I appreciate 3 of you did ask some questions, but if you have questions, put them in the queue. It's better for us to have more questions than less questions. So don't be shy. I mean, we're only here battling for the survival of our planet. So there's no reason to be shy about that. Does anybody have any other, put some questions in the queue or so we can talk about them until Congressman Garbarino, who did confirm only a half hour ago that he would be here. So I think he's just running a minute or two late.
I think we could ask a good question about carbon pricing. I don't think that came up. That might be a nice question that we could ask if there's time.
So Daniel, that's your topic. Can you put it in the queue?
I certainly can.
Okay, in the chat, I question and answer. This way, as we're selecting questions, it'll at least be in there. Erin, do you have any other questions? You should put them in the question and answer section too. But the audience too, put some questions in there, you guys. Okay. So is Congressman Garbarino joined yet? Not yet. Okay.
I tried putting a question as a panelist. I'm not sure if I'm able to do that, but I know there's some CCLers that are on in this attendance list that I recognize. So certainly encourage you guys to throw in some carbon pricing questions into the Q&A.
Good plan. Okay, I think he might have just joined. Let's just see.
Adrian, I have a great question. Can I put it in the chat, and if I can't put it in the Q&A?
Oh, yes, please do that.
I don't think I can. Hold on.
I think you can.
I can. Okay.
Okay, Congressman. Okay, we've chatted long enough. The Congressman has joined us. Thank you so much. Welcome, Congressman Garbarino. We appreciate your time and such a busy part of your election cycle here. We're going to get right down to it, if that's okay with you.
Sure, I apologize for being, I just got back to my house to do this. I was at another event.
No, don't apologize. It's just, as you know, everyone is being given 15 minutes. And so we don't want to gyp you. We just introduced the panelists here. As you know, I'm Adrian Esposito with Citizens Campaign for the Environment. The co-host this evening is Melissa Peratt.
Hello, I'm Melissa Peratt, and I'm a Sable resident.
Hello.
And I'm the Executive Director of Students for Climate Action.
Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin Peskin. I'm a high school student at Longwood, and I am a member of Students for Climate Action.
Daniel.
And I'm Dan Axatter. I am I'm representing Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm the chapter lead of the Queens Nassau chapter.
Hello.
So, Congressman, what we're going to do is turn it over to you. Of course, you get a couple of minutes to make any opening statement you would love. Then each of us will ask you a question, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience who have been very active actually now, all of a sudden, asking questions. And then, of course, we'll leave 2 minutes at the end for you to make a statement or additional information you'd like to provide.
Sure.
The floor is yours, Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, sorry for getting here a little bit late, but I want to thank the Students for Climate Action and Citizens Campaign for Environment for having me today to discuss the importance of preserving our environment while also creating a reliable and resilient energy future. As a third generation Long Islander, I grew up in Sayville. I take to heart the critical need to conserve our unique natural environment on Long Island. The Great South Bay is one of Long Island's greatest resources, and protecting the bay is in the best interest of both our environment and economy. Preserving the Great South Bay is an all-hands-on-deck effort, from cleaning up creeks and streams to eliminating waste pollution and nitrogen. I have long been an advocate for environmental preservation. During my time in Albany, I worked with Adrian and some other groups to support measures that cracked down on illegal dumping and protected the drinking water of Long Islanders, protected endangered and threatened species in the Empire State, and implemented sustainable energy loan programs. In my first term in Congress, I have delivered federal dollars directly to the 2nd District, which have allowed critical sewer projects to move forward. That's in addition to the infrastructure bill, which is bringing a lot of clean water money and sewer money to the entire state. And the best thing that I love about sewers, it not only spurs the revitalization of our local main streets, but also serves to protect and keep nitrogen out of the bay. I am proud to say that I am the co-chair of the bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus, because I believe there's much in Congress, much that we can do in Congress to address our changing climate while also protecting our economic prosperity. In the Climate Solutions Caucus, we are dedicated to working across the aisle to find common ground solutions and create a constructive dialogue about climate change, economics, energy, and conservation. And these conversations happen with members of Congress. They happen with global leaders on the environment, as well as other environmental organizations and business leaders. I know you have questions, and I was late, so I'm going to end. We can't ignore climate change. That is something I'll say, and that's something I believe. And I'm committed to continuing to work with my colleagues in Congress, industry, and you all to find actionable solutions during my next term in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our first question is from me. So we have 5, you might be shocked. We have 5 offshore wind farms that are moving through the regulatory process on the South Shore of Long Island. And by the end of the year or beginning of next year, some more will be selected by NYSERDA and the state of New York. That's a lot of wind farms. These wind farms are critical for New York to achieve their goal of transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Will you, as a congressman, if reelected, be a champion for offshore wind and continue to help this transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy?
Yes, I will be supportive of the wind farm projects. I think the sites, they've worked with the fishing industry to make sure all concerns were addressed. I know they're on the ground, they're getting off the ground, and I think they're going to deliver a lot of much needed energy to Long Island and elsewhere in the state. So I am supportive of them being part of the solution. As you said, though, they can't be. It's not the only solution. You know, wind and solar, they're great to be part of the solution, but especially in this transition period, you need to. There are other items that you need to talk about. Hydrogen, nuclear is. Our entire country is going through a transition period. Actually, the entire world has gone to a transition period, and making sure that it's sort of the all the above approach, I think, is very important, and that's what we discuss as a member of the Climate Solutions Caucus. All the above approaches working together. I went to COP26 last year, had meetings with other countries and CEOs of major industry, and Scotland's doing they're in a huge transition period as well. They're looking at a lot of different things, and they're very big with wind as well. So it's something that I've already been involved in, and I'm going to continue to be involved in my next term.
Melissa?
Thank you. So as you know, and what we've heard, climate change isn't a political issue, it is a human issue. So how would you collaborate with colleagues from across the aisle, specifically on climate policy, in addition to being a member of the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus?
Well, it's not, and the best part is I am also a member, and my colleague from Utah, John Curtis, started the Conservative Climate Caucus because a lot of Republicans, when they talk about climate, they don't, they stick their head in the sand because sometimes they think it's anti-business. So it's not even just about working with people across the aisle and Democrats. It's about educating some of my own colleagues that this is something that can be good for industry, and industry's not even against it. They're actually gone further than we have as a government. So one of the things that we do, and my friend, like I said, John Curtis started the Conservative Climate Caucus. It's about educating members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, about climate change and what we can do to address it. Economical and good ideas, that we can do to address it. And we've had a very good first year educating these members. And the idea was we'll educate them in the Conservative Climate Caucus, and then we'll push them into the Climate Solutions Caucus, so we can actually develop legislation with Democrats. And the reason why I say we have to develop it with Democrats is, if you have an only Republican bill or an only Democrat bill, it is not going to be a solution. It's going to be something that is going to be attacked by the other side as too much or not enough, and you won't have long-lasting climate policy. If we do it together, you'll have long-lasting climate policy that everyone can rely on and hopefully will be effective.
Thank you. We're going to move along because time's ticking.
I know. I'm sorry.
Erin?
I talk too much.
No. Listen, this is why we want the forum. We want to know about people's views. That's the whole purpose. Erin?
Hi. So I'm part of the youth who does plan to be working in the environmental field in the future. And we want to use clean energy over fossil fuels as much as possible. But the jobs in that industry require a lot of training. So what will you do to make sure that there's a well-trained workforce here on Long Island to keep up with the needs and opportunities of renewable energy?
That's a great question, because one of the biggest problems with the wind farms is the concern that we didn't have the trained workforce. Same thing with some of these, the solar panels, as well as installing these charging stations for the electric vehicles. Not having the proper training is a huge concern in the workforce. I've actually met with local IBEW union, as well as the Carpenters Union and the laborers, Local 66, about starting apprenticeships and internships for young people. Internships starting with high school age, and then after high school, getting starting apprenticeships with people following graduation of high school. IBEW works very closely with the National Electrical Contractors Association, which are business owners, and they are right now are working on an apprentice program that will help with the wind farm installation and connection over the next couple of years, and for the other farms that are coming forward. But we really need we need to work between both, and we have to get the schools to agree to send people into these programs. We got to get schools pushing kids towards these internships, and then having the unions and the businesses work together to make sure that there are enough apprenticeship spots to fill the jobs we need.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
now, thank you, Congressman. Daniel?
Yeah, I think we have about time for probably one last question, but how do you plan to protect communities from climate disasters, especially the most vulnerable communities?
Well, Long Island is, we have very vulnerable communities. I'm talking about coastal resilience, flooding. We've done a lot already in Congress. We had we got FIMP, Fire Island Montauk Point, which is redoing a lot of the barrier island to make sure to protect against future storms. That is something that it's short-term fix, but it's something that needs to get done. I've championed that, but we also need to improve our infrastructure. And I've also secured a lot of federal dollars, both in the national bill as well as to the town of Islip and Babylon, which are two areas in my community, to help raise roads and other bridges that still haven't been fixed since Sandy, and they were underwater in Sandy. So we just got Babylon a huge grant to raise some roads down there. They're very excited about it. I worked in tandem with the town supervisor on that, and then we very happy to say we got the money. And also preparedness. I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and we oversee FEMA and making sure that FEMA is well prepared to respond, but also that FEMA does outreach to the areas that have already been hit, and they do outreach to make sure that people are prepared pre-storm. That is very important, and I want to continue that work on Homeland next year if I can.
Great. Okay, I'm just going to ask you one more quick question, because we
Sure.
did ask your opponent this question, and I don't, I'm trying to make it as balanced and fair as possible. Notice I didn't say fair and balanced. Sorry. Okay, so given that the Department of Defense, this is coming from the audience, given that the Department of Defense is considered among the major sources of pollution in America, what do you think can be done to Department of Defense to reduce its impact on our environment?
It's the biggest polluter. How?
Well, if you look at things like the Grumman plume in Bethpage, and then there's another Grumman plume in Carrollton, and we can.
So fixing
go
up,
on and on.
they need to
Their
address that.
legacy.
Yeah, it's something that the Navy and they're going to end up having to pay for it, them and Grumman. One of the other projects that I got money for, we got some wells that are going into Levittown to help clean up the plume there, because the plume spread over there. Those are plumes that started a long time ago, when environmental standards, especially when they were being overseen by the federal government, were definitely not up to par, as you can tell. So one, the standards are better now. They are better, especially on a lot of these projects. And we still have a lot of defense manufacturers on Long Island. I have visited them, and they are doing a very good job in making sure that everything they do is followed by regulations. But for these old plumes, it's our responsibility to make sure that they are cleaned as best as possible. So even though they're old, it's still something that is on the top of my mind, and I'm sure other members of Congress from Long Island, because it's going to be spread across 3 different districts now. Will focus on making sure the Navy cleans up what it's supposed to.
Great, thank you. Okay, please, if you have any closing statement or forgot to say something that you'd like to add, please take the time now to do so.
I am just excited to be here. I thank you all for taking the time. This is an important issue. I take it very seriously, having grown up, swimming in the bay all the time. The fact that you can't get Blue Point oysters from the Great South Bay right now, the fact that people that they're from the Long Island Sound, I hate it. That's what I see in restaurants around the country. I want to bring the bay back to a time where we can actually say Blue Point oysters from the Great South Bay. And that is why I have fought for sewers for 10 years since I was in the state legislature. And I'm finally getting the money home to get these sewers in place. I'm very excited about it. But that's not the only thing. I have learned a lot being on the co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus. I have learned a lot talking to a lot of different organizations, as well as going over to COP and seeing what other countries are doing. It's something that is not just a New York, not just a Long Island issue. We have to do our part, but we got to make sure the country and the rest of the world are also doing theirs. So it's something that I didn't think I'd be one of the leaders on it, but I'm excited that I am, and I look forward to working with you all on how we can do better. Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, Congressman, both Melissa and I both live in your district. So
I'm so excited to have Pat Jog back. It's great.
I know I was not in your district, and now with the redistricting, yes, they added Pat Jog back.
Yeah, Massapequa all the way to Eastport. So it's the whole South Shore.
Yes.
Very excited.
Which is a good thing you're interested in the Bay, because the South Shore is very interested in the Bay.
Yes, absolutely. I want my kids to be able to swim there.
Yes, and not get sick when they do. So
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. Again, we know you're very busy, and we do appreciate your time and your perspective, and for joining us in this important conversation.
Absolutely.
Have a good evening.
Good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. Let me just ask my tech team if the next speaker is Bridget Fleming. She's running for the 1st Congressional District. I am being told she's not on the line yet. So I just want to say I'm sorry, then I could have kept him on, but I'm sorry for everyone. I know you started asking questions and then we ran out of time from asking him. But there is a question here about the municipal landfill closing in 2024. And I just want to say, I don't think that that's a question that a congressional candidate is going to be able to answer. It's really waste management is really more of an issue for state and for town representatives. So it's a great question, and I know why you're asking it, and I've been asking the same question. But I just want to say for Callie, who put it in the question and answer section here, it's probably just a better question for a state and or town and county representatives. So thank you for asking, and it's not that I'm ignoring your question. I just want to make sure we get to the questions that really pertain to our federal leaders. Okay. Let me just check out these other questions. I think that, and then there was another question by Emily. Do you believe you can act objectively in response to climate change when your previous campaigns have been largely funded by Red Apple Group? I'm sorry, Emily, just wasn't ignoring yours either. I just didn't get a chance to ask it. And then there was another one. How do you think your views on climate change are similar or different to fellow party members? I do think the congressman kind of touched on that, frankly, when he talked about his role in the collaborative that he's on. And I thought it was interesting the way he said first he wanted them to join the bipartisan committee and then move over to the climate change bipartisan committee. So at least there was a plan there for engaging Republicans and Democrats in climate solutions. Just checking the list here. Okay, the person who asked The question about the Pentagon is correcting me, saying the Department of Defense does not just cause local pollution, but global pollution as well. And I'm getting news articles to verify that. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I will read them at an appropriate time and do my homework on that. Okay, I don't know what's happening with Bridget Fleming. I'm going to text her. And after Bridget, we have Laura Gillen, who's running for the vacant seat, which is the 4th Congressional District on the South Shore as well. I think what's interesting about this year, as you probably all know, we have a record number of vacant congressional seats. So the 1st Congressional District, obviously, because Congressman Zeldin is not running for Congress anymore, he's running for governor. So that's an empty seat. We have an empty seat in the 3rd Congressional District because Congressman Swazi is not running for Congress anymore. And then we have an empty seat in the 4th Congressional District because Congresswoman Rice is not running for Congress anymore. We have a mad dash out of Congress, apparently. So these are empty seats, but actually that's almost unheard of to have that many empty seats. So this is quite interesting. It's one of the reasons we wanted to have this forum, because these are people who have not served in Congress and we don't know how they feel about this issue. And some of them have never been in elected office, such as Robert Zimmerman, who's going to be joining us later on. Laura was the town supervisor for town of Hempstead, but that's really not a role where you can see people's position on climate change. So we need to see that as well. And Bridget Fleming is a county legislator right now and actually has done some climate issues, but obviously not on a federal level, more on a county level. So I think that that's the main purpose. Melissa?
So I think it's interesting that I just want to, Garbarino was the only Republican that did come to this table to have this discussion, which was important, I think. You know, it was good to see that bipartisan collaboration, to hear from him, you know, that across the aisle, that question that I ask, that collaboration. So it's nice to see that is something that he would engage with. So wishing we had a little bit more on that side of things, but certainly looking forward to meeting with Laura and Robert. Students for Climate Action has met with Bridget before, and it's been a positive experience. So I'm looking forward to hearing how the other 2 candidates also will answer those questions. Erin, how are you feeling about this experience?
I definitely think it's an amazing experience for a high schooler to get. Not many people my age get to speak to congressional candidates. And I'm also learning so much about climate and politics. So
Daniel.
Yeah, you know, this is definitely a great opportunity, especially with you know, as many competitive districts as we have this year. You know, to really get to meet the candidates. So you know, this is definitely a great thing that, you know, for everybody everybody's in attendance.
So get out and vote, please. We need people to vote, and we need people to vote the environment. And I want to say this too, you know, one of the things I thought was really interesting was that when Newsday did that poll across Long Island, it was actually a very extensive poll. I don't know if people saw it last week, and people had the 5 top issues on people's minds. And this is not in order, but the 5 top issues were the issue of choice, the issue of the economy and cost of living. That counts as one. The 3rd one was crime. And then the 4th one was clean water. So it was good to see that, and the other one was the energy costs. So those were the 5 top issues, which I feel like climate change is related to energy costs, because one of the reasons energy is so high is it started with the, war with Russia, and the Ukraine, and then the oil market started speculation, and the price of oil was going up and down like a heart attack patient if you charted it. Even though there wasn't a less of supply, it was really speculation in the market that drove the cost of oil up per barrel. So oil went from, $37 per barrel, which what it was during COVID when everyone stopped driving, and catapulted up twice as much to in the 97, 98, which what it peaked at dollars per barrel. So part of driving us to renewable energy is to get off of that oil addiction and that oil need, and that will modify energy costs. So, I always wonder if people answer that poll understand that energy costs are related to transitioning away from the fossil fuels to wind energy and solar. Wind energy prices don't fluctuate. Once wind energy is established, there's a 20-year power purchase agreement that is signed with the energy company, PSE&G and LIPA. And so the cost of wind energy is fixed or known for 20 years. But we don't know the cost of oil next year. We don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, or 10 days from now, let alone 20 years from now. So one of the goals, or one of the benefits, I should say, of transitioning to offshore wind power will be to stabilize our energy costs. And they will be a known factor, and they will not be subject to geopolitical battles and geopolitical relationships. You all might have read in the paper where last week, Saudi Arabia had a meeting with Russia, and they agreed to limit the amount of oil that would be generated and produced. And what does that mean? That means we will be paying higher prices. That's what that means. It means they're deliberately driving the price of oil up. So, we have to survive, and we have to make the transition so that we're not held hostage by, political enemies, so to speak. Okay. So I guess we'll skip Bridget, and let's see if Laura Gillen is in the queue.
There's a good point that's been made here, not just about the transition to wind and solar, but also the need for widespread battery storage. We know that's increasing. That's becoming less of an issue, but still, as a representative, what bills would they support to expand battery storage technologies? That's a good one.
And well, if we have just a second, just one point you were making about the importance of voting. One thing that a group, the Environmental Voter Project, regularly cites is that the voters, the citizens in their polling data that rank the environment as their number one or number two issues and things that are important to them actually vote less often than even the average citizen in the country. So if that's important to you, the environment is an important issue to you, that makes it even more important to vote, because politicians tend to cater to the interests of the people that actually get out the vote. So if you're here, one would probably imagine that the environment is an important issue to you. So definitely get out there and vote in November. So.
And Carol brings up a good point. Of course, Adrian's a big proponent of this, is vote yes on the Clean Water, Clean Air, Green Jobs Bond Act as well, right? Flip that ballot over and vote yes.
Oh yeah, let's just make a commercial announcement for that. Thank you, Carol, for putting that in the chat, and for Melissa. So on your ballot, you probably know this if you're on this, but maybe you don't. There's Proposition 1. It is actually pretty historic. It's $4.2 billion that'll be allocated under 4 categories, one of which is $1.5 billion will be allocated for climate change, and another $1.1 billion for coastal resiliency. That's a lot of money. It's $650 million to protect drinking water and upgrade wastewater drinking, wastewater management plants, and another $650 million for land preservation. So those are all things that actually are important to fighting climate change. If you preserve land, you actually are helping to create a carbon sink. And also, particularly if it's coastal lands, they act as a buffer against wave action and sea level rise. And also, that's what the 1.1 billion in the Bond Act is about too, making coastlines more resilient. So in Nassau County, it's actually on the front of the ballot. For some reason, Nassau County is the only county in New York State that it's not on the back of the ballot. So if you live in Nassau County, it's at the bottom of your ballot as Proposition 1. If you live in Suffolk County, it's on the back of the ballot, but also as Proposition 1. So please, that's a big yes vote. It's $4.2 billion. Okay, let me just double check again for Laura Gillen. Okay, I see somebody has their hand up. But Michelle, we're not able, oh, wait, here's Laura Gillen. But Michelle, I see you have your hand up, but you have to put whatever it is in the question and answer, please. That would be best. Okay, thank you so much. Laura, I see you're joining us.
Hi, sorry,
Hi.
I'm in the car and we were having all kinds of technical difficulties, but I'm here.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. We
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
We know you're very busy. We're going to get right to it, maybe dispense with a lot of the beginning stuff.
Sure.
We just want to say again, this is simply a get to know your candidate. We have 15 minutes scheduled for you.
Great.
We have a lot of people watching tonight. We're going to just start and ask you just to take a couple of minutes and give an opening statement on if you were elected to Congress, your position on climate change, and anything you'd like to say about that. And then we have 4 questions for you. So the
Sure.
floor is yours.
So I'm running for Congress to protect a whole bunch of things that maybe not be germane to this discussion, but one of them is preserving our planet and preserving the planet that my children will inherit. And so I'm very much concerned about climate change. I think this district has seen like much of the country, but this district in particular has seen the disastrous effects that climate change has wreaked. We know it's only a question of when, not if, we have another superstorm Sandy that comes here. And it was an issue that was really important to me when I was Town of Hempstead supervisor. We had a great Department of Conservation and Waterways, which was run by amazing scientists. And they were so happy when I was supervisor because I was always doing new projects with them and getting them. They were in the paper all the time because Newsday would write about all the great things we were doing, like expanding our shellfish hatchery to grow more seedlings and more oysters, to clean and filter our waterways. We did dredging projects to clear our waterways as well. We did a project with the state where we built new reefs to plant our seedlings on. And we used discarded shells from restaurants. So they were happy to have us take them away. We were happy to put a natural thing back into our waters to create these natural reefs. And a whole other host of other projects that we did in the Town of Hempstead. And that's the exact same kind of thing that I want to do in Congress. I want to make sure we're preserving our EPA. We're sending dollars here to continue to do those kinds of projects, working with our partners at the state and local level. And so I'm proud to be endorsed by the Sierra Club. I'm proud to be endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters, where I had been a board member, but I resigned when I ran. And so now I hope to be supportive of the group as a member of Congress.
Thank you. Well, I just want to know, I'm joined by my co-host here, Melissa Perot, and she's the, go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Melissa Perot. I'm the Executive Director of Students for Climate Action.
Hi, Melissa. Sorry, I'm calling you in the car.
Okay.
All right,
But-
I think I'm stable now.
Okay, well, we're going to jump to our first question. Our first question is that there are currently 5 offshore wind farms that are making their way through the regulatory process off of the coast of Long Island. And also more will be announced next year by NYSERDA in New York State. We want to know, will you be a champion of these wind farms and of the state's effort to transition away from fossil fuels to renewable for a new green economy?
Absolutely, 100%. I think it's really an exciting time where New York is really on the forefront of this new energy source. It was really exciting. I could not be at the governor's announcement today regarding the wind farms because I was with the majority leader of the House talking about other issues, but there was a really exciting announcement that many of you probably know about creating training workforce training for people to go into the green economy. Maybe Adrian, you were there. You were there. Okay. So I think that's really
and
great.
Melissa and I were both there.
Okay. So I think that's great. It's great for our planet. It's great to provide new training for young people to get involved in this field, creating new jobs, creating new projects for workers here. And of course, very supportive of the clean energy agenda.
Thank you. Melissa?
Great, thank you. So as you know, climate change is not a political issue, it is a human issue. So if you were elected, how do you see collaborating with your colleagues across the aisle on climate policies?
Sure. So, if, for example, the only incumbent from Long Island who's running is Andrew Garbarino, his district is very similar to my district where we have a lot of shorefront communities. So the climate issues that I was talking about in my opening statement are climate issues that affect his constituents as well. So I do think that as a member of Congress, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I will reach out to him immediately and try to find common ground where we can make sure we're securing federal dollars that will help the people that I represent and the people he represents in the rest of Long Island as well.
Thank you. Erin, can you introduce yourself and ask your question?
Hi, my name is Erin Peskin. I am a high school student here on Long Island and a member of Students for Climate Action. And I'm part of the youth who plans to work in the environmental field in the future. But
Great.
The jobs in this industry need employees who are properly trained. So my question is, what will you do to make sure that there is a well-trained workforce here on Long Island to meet the upcoming needs and opportunities of wind and solar and other reusable resources?
So we were just talking about the governor's announcement today. I, as a member of Congress, I will do what I can to get federal dollars into these training programs, also to support the institutions that are training our new generation of workers who work in this space and work in this field. I think tackling this is kind of outside the climate area, but tackling student debt is something that we have a responsibility to do so more students can afford to study environmental studies and learn the trade. So that's something that I'm going to take a holistic approach at, looking at our public institutions, making sure our public colleges are strong so people can have a pathway to affordable education as well to enter this space and others.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Daniel, you're up.
Okay, my name is Dan Axtatter. I am representing Citizens Climate Lobby. Also grew up in Oceanside, and my mom grew up in Baldwin. So
Oh, great.
we've been following you for a while now. And my question for you today is, what do you see as the biggest climate or energy issue in the district, in your opinion?
I mean, I think the biggest issue is moving away from fossil fuels, right? And our dependence on fossil fuels. And I think we're making great leaps and strides moving towards that we see more and more electric vehicles. We're seeing, it was funny, I was in an Uber the other night and the gentleman had an electric vehicle. And I was like, how is it in terms of finding charging stations? And he said, there's so many more now than there used to be. And that's really encouraging. And we're seeing the price of electric vehicles come down. And in terms of the wind energy, I think that's a really great stride. So I think that's the biggest issue that we have to move forward on.
Great. I think we have time for one more question in the chat. People have been very active asking questions. Let's ask the question by Paris. She's asking, would you support and be a champion of policy? And actually, you just touched on this, but not specifically. Would you support and be a champion of policies that reduce car dependency and cost of living, such as incentives for microtransit and mixed use development?
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's something that we did address on a small scale in the town of Hempstead. As we were looking to redevelop communities like Baldwin, we wanted to make sure that we had plenty of space for pedestrians and for cyclists. I think especially with the younger generation, more and more of the young people want to bike or use scooters to get to work and be less dependent on private automobile vehicles. But right now we've seen, I think the cover of Newsday just a few days ago was about how dangerous it is to walk or bike in Long Island. Route 25, Route 27 are like death traps if you're walking or cycling. So I think we can send federal dollars to try to increase spaces where people can safely cycle, safely walk or jog, maybe by creating barriers on our roadways. And those infrastructure dollars that are being sent here with the new Infrastructure Act, that should definitely be an important part of that equation. And I will work with our partners at the state and local level to make sure that is incorporated to any planning of streetscapes going forward with those infrastructure dollars.
Thank you. And just another real quick one. This is a good one. We cannot talk about the transition to wind and solar without also discussing the need for widespread battery storage. If elected to Congress, would you support expanded battery storage technologies?
Yes.
Okay, that was short and sweet. That's why I asked that one. Okay. Okay. So I know that Mr. Zimmerman is next and he's waiting, but you have the floor for the next 2 minutes. Would you like to make a closing statement or add anything for our listeners or viewers on your perspective about climate change or the environment in general?
So look, I think we're making really great strides at the state and the federal level in terms of addressing climate change. And in Congress, I will be an advocate for those issues. We've seen that the people who voted against, like the Inflation Reduction Act, which does so much to increase our footprint in the green energy space, I will be supportive of those policies. And you can count on me to vote in favor of that kind of legislation.
And we will. If you're elected, we will be coming to you.
I know, Adrian, you have my phone number.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. We know that you are in a very, very busy time in October. So we really do appreciate your time here tonight. And I know our listeners do too. Protecting Long Island from climate change, but also protecting our planet from climate change is very important to us. And we look forward to continuing this conversation if you succeed on November 8th. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We're just waiting for Mr. Zimmerman to turn on his camera. And as you folks can see, it's like a well-oiled machine here. Just to, oops. So this Robert Zimmerman is our last speaker. He's another one who's in the car. These people are really on the go. I hope it's an electric car, Robert. No, I'm just kidding. We can't hear you. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
There you are. There you are.
There you are too.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for joining us. You are our last panelist today. We know you have a busy schedule. We know it's 8:45 at night.
Let me tell you something, Adrian. Nobody works harder than you do, and the achievements. As much as I'm thinking I'm working hard, you do this 24/7, 365 days a year. And thank you, because you have motivated and inspired generations of activists for the environment and educated them. So it's great. And great to be with the students addressing the climate crisis too, because it's an issue that I've been addressing in my campaign very aggressively.
Great. Well, let me introduce who we are here with tonight. My co-host this evening is Melissa Peratt. Melissa.
Hi there. My name is Melissa Peratt. I'm the founder and executive director of Students for Climate Action.
Good to be with you, Melissa.
Erin?
Erin?
Hi, my name is Erin Peskin. I am a high school student here on Long Island, and I am a member of Students for Climate Action.
Where do you go to school?
Longwood.
Oh, great. Great. Good to be with you. Thank you for including me tonight.
And I guess I'm going last. So my name is Dan Axtatter. I am here as a representative of Citizens Climate Lobby, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Where are you speaking to me from?
Oceanside.
Oceanside, great, excellent. I used to march, when I was a kid, we marched to close the dump there. The Oceanside dump. That was that landfill was one of our big projects we worked on to close. We
Well,
have
now it's
vigils
a
there
gorgeous,
regularly.
it's a gorgeous park now.
Yeah, great. It's like
Okay.
Harbor Links in North Hempstead.
Okay, so we're going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we have a couple from the audience. And now I'm getting text messages from Bridget Fleming. She would like to join when you are done. So, because she missed her slot. So let me start by asking you, Robert. We currently have 5 offshore wind farms that are moving through the regulatory process off of Long Island's coast, and more will be announced by New York State early next year. We want to know, will you be a champion of offshore wind and this transition that New York is working hard to make, that to go from fossil fuels to renewable energy technologies?
Yes, you certainly have my commitment to stand up for wind farms and to be a champion for renewables for sure. And it's wind farms, it's also other forms of renewables too we have to focus on. And my real concern is making sure we don't rely upon energy plants fueled by fossil fuels to power renewables. That's a real concern of mine going forward. And of course, addressing the grid, making sure the grid can accommodate the change as well is going to be very important.
Yes, good. Melissa.
Thank you. So as you know, climate change is not a political issue. It is a human issue. So if elected, how do you plan on collaborating with your colleagues across the aisle on climate policies?
Well, let me disagree with the premise of the question, just to be a little feisty for tonight anyway. In my campaign, it's very much a political issue because my opponent in this race doesn't recognize the climate crisis is real. And I couldn't help. I just stared at him in disbelief. And the audience looked at my expression, burst out laughing, because it's incomprehensible in today's world, with all the science and data that we have before us, that a serious candidate for political office would not recognize the climate crisis is real and before us. Yet he regards all of this as cyclical and just the flow of nature, as he put it, or a cyclical process. So regrettably, it's very important to address this politically by your votes and your action to make sure that those people who don't respect science, those people who don't even regard the fact that we live in a climate crisis, we have a climate crisis, make sure that they're called out for that. And make sure people who are elected or at least respect science and the climate crisis. But to your question, which is, I think, very important, I do believe there's an opportunity for bipartisanship around this issue. Because sometimes you don't call it the climate crisis, sometimes you just call it severe weather. But I know so many members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike, whose neighborhoods and communities have been impacted by extreme weather, businesses being hurt, homes being destroyed, people dying. And so there's a reality here, and there's a chance to build on, I hope, bipartisanship around it. And one of the most important things that I think I can do is mobilize, and you put it very well in your question, is mobilize people around this issue. Forget the party politics, forget the partisanship. Adrian, you've done that very well with your work. And that is to bring people together around the reality that if we don't stop the climate crisis, it's going to impact their health, their public safety, their property values, and in fact, our national security. So it's a really important point to bring up. And I really have hope there's a chance for, and the same way we've seen the world pull together, we can actually pull together Republicans and Democrats around this issue. That's my hope anyway.
All right. I like that sentence. Well, that does explain why your opponent declined to participate in this evening's Zoom informational session.
I had 2 debates with him. He canceled every debate after that. And he's actually canceled, he didn't even meet with the new editorial board. So that's where we're at here. But don't kid yourself, Adrian. I want to stress this to you. I'm in a close race. It's a race that's going to be defined by 3 to 5%. And right now we're tracking ahead. But these types of close races, you can't take anything for granted.
No,
so
absolutely cannot. No one can.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Erin.
Hi, so I am part of the youth who plans to be involved in the environmental field in the future. And we want to use as much clean energy over fossil fuels as possible, but jobs in that industry require a lot of training. So my question is, what will you do to make sure that there's a well-trained workforce here on Long Island to meet upcoming needs and opportunities for renewable resources?
You know, there was just a recent bill has just passed in Congress, championed by Senator Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, endorsed by Joe Manchin, and signed by Joe Biden. And it was the legislation, amongst its other features, which includes capping the cost of prescription drugs and lowering healthcare costs. It is the greatest singular investment in clean energy union jobs in the history of America. Now, to your point, which is so critical, and the reason your question is important, is that the money's been appropriated. Now, how do we make sure it's allocated back home? How do we get the dollars home? Because oftentimes these funds, when they get moved through the bureaucracy, oftentimes other priorities take over. You'll find, quite frankly, either federal agencies or state agencies have other priorities. So one of my critical jobs as a member, I'm sorry, I'm speaking to you in the shadows, but I'm just in a car and it's dark. But one of my priorities would be to make sure the money's allocated and brought home and delivered into Long Island. We'll have a great champion in Chuck Schumer in doing that for sure, but it's really got to be, it's an imperative for a member of Congress to address that. And so I'll be working on that. And I think one of the ways you ensure there's proper job training and there's well-paying jobs that provide a future is making sure they're union jobs. So clean energy union job is not just an expression, it's a way of guaranteeing we have well-paying jobs and help people transition into what will be the new economy in the future of our country.
Thank you. And Daniel.
Well, I think I'm going to combine the question that I had with one with the panelists. If you are elected in November, what do you think is the biggest climate and energy issue facing your district, and how would you protect communities, especially the most vulnerable communities, from climate change?
Well, there's not one issue, and I think as a member of Congress, if I'm given the privilege of serving, I would have dedicated staff addressing the climate crisis and working specifically on that. I'd want to have an intern program amongst the interns. I started out as an congressional intern, so that experience stayed with me and inspired me all these years to run later in life. I want to have congressional interns specializing on the climate crisis as well. And what I would look at, just off top of mind thoughts, is one, making sure we have the funds from the bipartisan infrastructure bill to be used to test and protect our water quality. Because we have the forever chemical problem. We have forever chemicals, 1,4-dioxide that has to be tested. There are unfunded mandates being forced on municipal governments. So I want to make sure we bring back funds from the bipartisan infrastructure bill to deal with water testing, protecting our water quality. That would be one issue. I'd also want to use the money to protect the Long Island Sound by retrofitting our sewage treatment plants to avoid nitrogen spilling into the Sound. You know, the eastern part of the Sound's gotten a lot better, but in the western part of the Sound, we still have seepage from New York City. We have sewage treatment plants that are spewing nitrogen into the Sound, and we have real problems in the western part. So there's a lot of progress that's been made, and all of you have been part of that progress for sure. But I want to make sure we focus on the Long Island Sound as well. So there are two projects that come to mind right away in terms of addressing the climate crisis, in terms of addressing our quality of life. Also, I want to be able to address the flooding issue too, because that's really a very severe issue as a result of severe weather. So those are issues that come to my mind. And it's an important point because, once again, elections are about choices. My opponent refuses to endorse the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is the largest investment in infrastructure and a great investment for dealing with the climate crisis, but the largest investment in infrastructure since Eisenhower. So I think it's an important initiative.
Yeah, we like to say the infrastructure isn't going to fix itself. You know, we have to fix it. So yes, I totally agree with that. Okay, so do you want anything else you'd like to add? A statement of your own, and then we're going to let you go since Bridget is on the line now, but also it is very late. But if you'd like to make a closing statement, we would love to hear it, Robert.
I would appreciate that, Adrian. First of all, would you congratulate Bridget Fleming on a great Newsday endorsement that she got, okay, from me. I thought it was a wonderful endorsement. I'm also proud to be endorsed by Newsday as well.
Well, she can hear you right now because she's on. So I
okay.
can't do that because we're nonpartisan, but you can do that.
Okay. Okay, Bridget, if you're listening, congratulations. Awesome endorsement. Once again, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity. But more than that, although you're nonpartisan, you're really Long Island's educators. The students, yourself, Adrian, all of you are important in terms of educating people. If you educate people as to what the options are and the choices to take, they'll step up and do the right thing politically. Because political activism is the way you get results around these issues. And you've proven that by mobilizing the public to address these issues. They then step up in front of their local governments. They take on their members of Congress, work with people who are their allies, and bring real achievements. You know, we all know how severe the climate crisis is, but I would leave you with one bit of hope. We've seen in the past year and a half some of the most important initiatives being taken to address it. The bipartisan bill, the historic investment in clean energy union jobs. All we need now is to make sure we have elected officials with the commitment to act on these opportunities and commitment to bring these important initiatives back home to Long Island. It's going to be my commitment to you to work on these issues, bring the dollars home, to put these plans in place, and make sure that my congressional office, through our legislative staff, through our interns, puts the climate crisis front and center, because it is a matter of national security, a matter of public health, a matter of the future of the essence of the future of our region and the future of our lives. So I'm proud to be with you on this and honored to have this chance to make my case, and hope to be able to serve you if I'm given the privilege of serving in Congress. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate your time. We know it's late, but these are really important.
We sure are.
Okay.
We sure are.
All right. So thank you and be well. Drive safe.
Okay. Thanks again. I will give it my best. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
So long. Bye-bye.
Okay. And last but not least, we know Bridget is on here. Jordan, my tech person, she's saying she's on and she needs permission to come up to the site. Come up to the panelist. Bridget, can you raise your hand? Oops. There we are. Oh,
Okay, you're unmuted me.
there we are. Well, it says your name's Seth Cohen, so I think people just didn't know right away that was
Oh,
Bridget.
sorry.
No. Okay, well, thank you so.
I'm sorry, do I join as a panelist or stay an attendee?
No, right now we can see you. So if you put your camera on, you are a panelist and everyone can see you and hear you.
Hi.
There you are. Hi.
We fought through the technology. Thank
There
you
we
so
go.
much. Adrian, I apologize for not being there for my slot. As you can imagine, with 18 days left, we are racing around like crazy, raising money. And
we just interviewed 2 people in their cars. So at least you're in a stable location.
yeah, we're about to get in a car. I'm so glad I was able to jump on. So thank you.
Well, thank you. For those people who don't know, this is Bridget Fleming. She's running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, which is the North and South Fork and all of Brookhaven and parts of Huntington and Smithtown as well. But we're going to jump right in because it's getting a little late. And we have 4 questions for you from our 3 wonderful panelists and me. But the first question, Bridget.
You're also wonderful.
Thank you.
For the record.
The first question is, we have 5 offshore wind farms that are moving through the regulatory process here in New York State, and New York will be approving, or at least beginning the approval process for several more starting next year. Will you, if elected to Congress, be a champion for offshore wind and help New York make this transition from fossil fuels to renewables?
Absolutely, I will. It has been a source of tremendous pride for me to represent a district in the county legislature that is home to the first commercial scale offshore wind project in the United States. So we're showing how it can be done. Adrian, thank you so much for your help with Citizens Campaign for the Environment and for Win with Wind, which has been very effective. We've learned a lot of lessons as we've moved along, and we've moved that project along. And one of the things that I've found as an environmentalist who represents someplace where the environment is the engine that runs the economy and where it sort of defines who we are, is that we have the opportunity to test drive things, to, push the envelope, and because of our commitment to the environment. And then we can not only get those things done at the local level, but we then also serve as a model for the rest of the region, the rest of the country, the rest of the world. And I think that's what the South Fork Wind Project this is going to accomplish. And those other projects that are going to roll in after them, as you've mentioned, will have a lot to go on in terms of best practice models. One of the things that was so helpful with the Orsted project, Eversource project, is that, there was such care taken with the resistance, the concerns of the community, the concerns of the fishermen, concerns of environmentalists. And so because of the careful work, the conscientious work of folks who are willing, like yourself, who are willing to have those tough conversations, we were able to establish best practices for moving forward. And so now the next projects that are going to go off, in the Atlantic, but further west, won't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of how to accomplish these projects without, while mitigating adverse impacts to the environment and neighbors and, other like industries like fisheries.
Thank you. My co-host this evening is Melissa Parat. Melissa is the Executive Director for Students for Climate Action. Melissa?
Hi, thank you. So as you know, climate change is not a political issue, it's a human issue. So if elected, how do you see yourself collaborating with your colleagues across the aisle on climate policies?
Well, it is one of my kind of stock and trade approaches to my work, and I'm very proud of trying to set a model for government that allows for the tough conversations, that invites, a discussion amongst competing perspectives, competing shareholders. So for instance, as we mentioned, the Ocean Wind Project required good conversations with fisheries representatives. That's often a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that has to be had if you're going to do the best job that you can. The solar project that I helped with the Nature Conservancy is another great example. We've seen, because we're so built out on Long Island and space is scarce, when folks want to put mid to large size solar developments in place, they find they need to trade green for green. We had a problem with solar developers wanting to clear trees and disrupt, habitat, wildlife habitat. So Nature Conservancy, with my support, made a multi-tiered map that guides investment in solar, that identifies places where those conflicts are going to be less challenging, and with the hope of taking some of the ambiguity out of the central questions around solar, which are, for instance, what is the local zoning, what is the capacity of the grid, and what is the actual space. So identifying capped landfills and rooftops and parking lots, that's something that we did by taking on that tough issue, saying green for green is a challenge. How do we get there? While taking into consideration competing viewpoints. It's something I did last time because I know you're very busy, but this is what I do. I'm an environmentalist, and the Newsday endorsement today reflects it. But we did in Accabonac Harbor. When I first came to office in 16, there was the Sierra Club was very interested in banning the use of methoprene. And the fight had gone on for years where what the environmentalist says, no methoprene, it hurts crustaceans. And the public health people say methoprene kills the mosquitoes. And by the way, your science is wrong. And they would just fight. The environmentalists would vote no, and the spraying would continue. So I said, is there a way that we can come to some kind of agreement? Is there something in this circumstance that we can all agree on? And of course, it came down to cost. So nobody wants an expensive program. It costs money to buy the pesticide. It costs money to send the helicopters out. It costs staff time, et cetera. So I engaged a group of citizen scientists, some environmentalists in the town of East Hampton, the Nature Conservancy, and we set up a program with citizen scientists who actually go out on the marsh. We designed a GPS app that will help them log where the mosquito larvae are and send it back. The public health people agreed that they would change the routes of the helicopters based on what the science was showing in terms of where the mosquitoes are. Fast forward 6 years, we have reduced methoprene spraying by over 90%. We have a return of red-winged blackbirds, dragonflies, the killifish, which are the predators of the mosquitoes. So it continue to fix the problem. And then, of course, we have nesting bald eagles on that marsh as well. And now with the marsh is beginning to respond, the water is flowing because we don't have the clogging that came with some of the vegetation that was impacted by the pesticide. And the marsh is doing its work in storm surge by, having the wet dry cycle and being a storm surge mitigator. So tons of good things come out of having good, tough conversations.
Okay, we're going to go on to our next question. Erin, unmute. Yes.
Hi, I'm Erin Peskin. I am a high school student here on Long Island and a member of Students for Climate Action. I am part of the youth who plans on working in the environmental field in the future, and we want to use clean energy over fossil fuels as much as possible, but jobs in this industry require a lot of training. So my question is, what will you do to make sure that there is a well-trained workforce here on Long Island to meet the upcoming needs and opportunities in wind and solar?
It's a great question, and it's a great opportunity for Long Island to build our economy. Those offshore wind turbines take a lot of work to manufacture, to maintain, to install. And so as some may know, the project, I'm being given a 3-minute sign. Boy, I'm sorry, folks, I'm being such a diva. But just so you know, the economy there's great promise for the economy to be able to build, to use those turbines to create good manufacturing jobs. And luckily, organized labor was involved in that project and got a project labor agreement in place so that we know when those jobs start to roll out, they're going to be good jobs with good salaries, with good working conditions, and a promise of a good pension and secure future. And so that's just one perfect example, but we could do the same with solar. We just have to have the will to do it. Electric charging stations also, we need to learn how to transition our electric workers and the other workers who are working in fossil fuel industry and move them into a cleaner energy for better jobs, for safer jobs, and for a safer and more sustainable future for Long Island.
All right, we have one last question from our last panelist, Daniel. Daniel, please get it in there.
All right. Well, thanks for being here today. And I'm here with Citizens Climate Lobby, and just had a question about what do you think is the biggest climate or environmental issue in your district?
We have several impacts of climate change that we need to address. One is, of course, loss of beaches. One is loss of critical wetlands. We have shoaling of navigation channels, and we have flooding of neighborhoods, particularly coastal neighborhoods. Now, sometimes when there isn't even a rain event, all we need is a full moon and a high tide, and you have flooding. The flooding means higher insurance premiums. It means that emergency responders can't get to neighborhoods, and it really does impact property values. So there's just no question we're in the crosshairs. And as I was saying before, it means that we here on Long Island can not only dig in and find ways to solve our own problems, but we will be serving the greater good by offering a model to the region and to the country and to the globe as a whole. I started a program where we put an RFP out on the street to ask for bids for engineering companies to identify 25 sites on the coastline that are vulnerable to climate change, and then to propose solutions. So with proactive investment to protect those properties, we're testing out theories and ways of engaging nature-based solutions to do this, so that we are mitigating the damage that, for instance, a seawall will do. So that's probably our biggest, because we're coastlines, 1,000 miles of coastline here in Suffolk County.
Yep. I think out of all the districts, maybe in Congress across the nation, Congressional District 1 probably is the most fragile and has, or right up there with Florida, maybe the Florida Keys, but many challenges. But I want to thank you so much for joining us, Bridget. If you want to say one last thing in a closing statement, we know it's late. We know you have to go, and we appreciate your time. We know it's a very busy time of year.
I just want to mention, thank you so much for having me and for your patience. I'm not usually a diva, but it's just the schedule's gotten crazy. Just please take a look at the Newsday endorsement that Bob mentioned for me today, because they endorsed me as the clear better candidate in this district, and did not even mention the question of abortion or women's fundamental rights. That endorsement is based almost solely on my efforts as an environmentalist. And I'll just quote what the editorial says is: Fleming is ready for doing the following: mobilizing federal dollars and resources for electric charging stations, incentivizing good jobs, offshore wind, and pursuing nature-based solutions. The editorial says problem meets solution, and they're referring to me. So it's a source of great pride. I'm so appreciative of relationships like my relationship with yourself, Adrian, that allow me and you to do the good work that's so necessary to protect and defend our natural resources. So thanks for the opportunity to share that good news.
All right. Well, thank you to you. Best of luck to you and to all our participants tonight. Thank you to all the members of the public who joined and hung in there extra late. We appreciate everyone's time. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Night.